You're listening to Mind Your Trucking Business on TNCRadio.live, where James Rogers, Jamie Irvine, and Tom Kelly provide owner-operators of commercial trucks with expert advice about starting, operating, and growing a professional trucking fleet. It's time to mind your trucking business.
Hi, and welcome to TNC Radio. This is Mind Your Trucking Business. I'm Tom Kelly, along with Jamie Irvine and James Rogers. We're going to be with you here for the next hour talking about all things regarding business in the world of trucking. But before we jump into it too far, let's kind of get to know each other and let you get to know us a little bit better. So let's start off this way. I want to introduce you to James Rogers. James is a driver who has built up his own trucking business, and just a very, very interesting guy. So, James, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background in trucking, and how it is that you got to this point, and just a little bit about who you are.
Well, I guess I could start before trucking because it kind of brought me into where I'm at now. It was, I guess you could say, it was kind of destiny fell into place. I'm a country boy at heart. Spent most of my time raised in North Carolina, spent a lot of summers and stuff upstate New York, on the family's farms and stuff, and pretty much worked on everything and drove everything from tractors to combines to, you name it, old Mack trucks, old Ford trucks where you got a 3 on the column and a push button to start it. But I went into trucking initially, when was it? I was probably 20 years old, maybe. Went in, was working for a local furniture company out of North Carolina, Furniture Land South, and we were just delivering country all over the eastern seaboard. Then I went and decided I wanted to go over the road just because it was more money and stuff, wanting to get more experience, and I went to work for TMC as a flatbedder. And then, of course, 9/11 had happened, and I made a decision, like literally, I drove truck, trailer, flatbed, and all right into a parking lot that had a recruiter station. And at that point in time, I had enlisted in the United States Army. I was 27 years old at that point in time. And that was old to go in the military. But it led to more experience for me because, despite my job in the Army, which was a chemical, specialist, I got the opportunity to further drive anything that had, rubber on it or was on it, tracks or plate or anything like that. And I was able to get my experience. And then, of course, in a lot of the areas we drove, I got a lot more experience, especially in the combat zones. Unfortunately, I was injured after serving about 11 years while deployed. I was medically retired just over 11 years in. And when I got out, I went through a really, really, really hard time. I was, not ashamed to say it today, but I was a statistic. Come out suffering from PTSD, very strong PTSD, and obviously the physical injuries that I was not dealing with well at all. And that statistic really kicks in, I became a prescription, opioid abuser. And proudly, I could say that I was able to overcome it with the help of my wife and a lot of friends that helped me overcome that. And I started looking for what I was missing. What was it that I was missing in my life? And what I realized was it was the opportunity to continue to serve something that was bigger than myself, that's what I was missing from the military. And I started immediately and went right back to the trucking industry. So me and my wife decided that, hey, we'll give it a whirl again. And I went back to work, went to Prime, right there out of Missouri, close to the house and stuff. Got everything going. I was a trainer, and then I got nominated. I had no clue who had nominated me, but I got nominated as a new driver, a veteran driver, disabled driver, to be a part of a contest that was put on by Progressive Commercial Insurance and St. Christopher's Fund, which was called the Keys to Progress. Which Progressive has done this program for years, but it was the first time and it's the only time to this date that they did it for commercial drivers and a disabled veteran. And fortunately, I was blessed with that. I was blessed to, to win that, and the reward for it was a truck, a 2015 Freightliner Cascadia, and they also assisted me in setting up my own authority, and that's where the beginning of my fleet started, and that was going on 5 years ago. And here I am today, the owner of Spartan Direct. A very short 5 years. It don't even seem like 5 years. We've got 7 trucks, 7 trailers. I run team trucks. I've got a great group of contractors that are working with me. And in those 5 years, obviously, we've had when we started, the market was pretty high, 2018, and then it dropped. And then, of course, the world imploded during the pandemic, and we came out on that. And here we are, fighting through a crazy economy and market right now for the trucking industry. And I'm happy to say that because of the team I have built and are with me, that we're doing very, very well. That's about the easiest way that I could sum up anything really about me.
Fantastic. And that we're going to come back to that later in the show, but I appreciate you letting us know about who you are and some of the things that you've done. Jamie, how about you? Tell us a little bit about who is Jamie.
Well, my name is Jamie Irvin. I'm the host of the Heavy Duty Parts Report and now a proud co-host of Mind Your Trucking Business, working alongside you two gentlemen. I'm so happy to be here. My career started in 1998 in heavy duty parts. Started working for a manufacturer that also had a remanufacturing division. And I started sandblasting parts. I remember they tried to break me the first 3 days, stuck me on a sandblaster and wouldn't let me off of it. And after 3 shifts in a row, they said, okay, well, this kid isn't going to quit, so maybe we'll start teaching him how to rebuild valves. And I worked my way up to shop foreman of that manufacturing facility. And then I got into operations management, moved into the sales department towards the end of my 10 years with that company, and was the national sales account manager. Then I went to work for a distributor selling truck parts, and I'm Canadian, so Traction Heavy Duty is a very large distributor, coast to coast, nationwide. Got a chance to work for them and was an award-winning salesperson at that point. And then 2009 happened, and the whole financial system collapsed because of the housing crisis. And the company I was working for, they started shutting down corporate stores. And so I had a choice. I could just wait until I got laid off, or I could try to find another opportunity. And I started my first business with a partner, and that partner, about 4 months in, came to me and said, I don't want to do this. And he pulled out. And so that first business only lasted a short time. And unfortunately, I spent all of my money on that business, and I was down to $700. And there was nobody hiring in truck parts, so I couldn't even get back into that. So what was I going to do? Well, any good entrepreneur just goes and starts another company. So I started a contracting business with my last $700, and my wife and I built that company over 6 years to the point where we actually sold it in 2016. And that brought me back into the world of truck parts because I was too young to retire. I had just gone through this amazing journey of startup all the way through to an M&A. And, I kind of thought maybe I'd buy another business or I would do something like that, but I couldn't find one that was a good deal. And this is why you never burn any bridges, because my old boss from Traction had gone to work for Truck Pro out of Memphis, Tennessee, and they have a Canadian division. And they just happened to have a parts store in my little hometown that I had moved to be close to family. And so I got back into selling truck parts in 2016. I worked for them for just over 3 years. And while I was working for them, I fell back in love with the trucking industry. And I can honestly say I could never imagine leaving the industry again. And it was a good opportunity for me to just take a break, because I'd been building this company. I'd been the boss. I'd been carrying all the financial responsibility. Now I could just focus on being a salesperson and doing something that I loved. And I always loved bringing out manufacturers. So I was bringing out manufacturers. We were talking to repair technicians and fleets and It was great. And that's where the idea says, hey, if we record some of these conversations, we might have something. And so June 1st, 2019, I launched the Heavy Duty Parts Report. Very shortly after that, I quit my job and said goodbye to the folks at Truck Pro. And now I run the show, and we've been doing this for 3 years, 200 episodes. And I also work as a consultant helping heavy duty parts and repair companies. So there's 22, 25 years in a couple minutes.
Oh, that's awesome. And we're excited to be working with you on this too.
So Tom, let me ask you, I'd like to learn a little bit more about your history.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. Tom Kelly, I've been in the IT world really for most of the last 40 years. Started off with a large IT company, was there just a couple of years when I went to work for a small company out of St. Louis. And we had a lot of ideas on how the company should be managed and how it should be built and put together that didn't really match with the guy who owned the company's ideas. And my partner and I, he and I kept talking about, oh gosh, you ought to do this, you ought to do. And finally we decided, well, if we're so smart, why don't we just go do it ourselves? So we cashed everything we owned, sold our houses, grabbed our wives, and moved to Houston, Texas, because it doesn't snow in Houston. That was our number one reason to move to Houston. And so we moved to Houston and started our own IT company. And within 3 years, we were in multiple cities, and it was a multi-million-dollar company, and it was just a huge success story. I took a little time off. I sold my part of that out because I wanted to do some other things. Started a couple more companies, took some time off to try to be a professional golfer. It didn't work out, but hey, I tried, right? And that's part of life, is being able to look back and say, I gave it my best shot. And okay, sometimes things work, sometimes they don't. That didn't work out the way I wanted it to, but ended up working for another large IT company for the last 20 years. That came to an end a couple of years ago. I decided I'd retire. And after about 15 minutes, I decided I don't know what that means to retire. So I came out of retirement in 15 minutes and, long story short, ended up finding some really brilliant radio people. And we all got together and said, there's a hole here that we think we can fill of having a radio station that is dedicated to the trucking community, that you don't have to subscribe to, you don't have to pay for, it's just good content for those who need it. I had the IT background to build it. All my life people were saying, hey, Tom, you ought to be in radio. I thought it was because of my voice. It turns out it was my face that they were trying to tell me. No, I'm just, but we started the station coming up on 2 years ago. First day was July 1, 2020. And so right about 2 years ago, started the station, and it's been going gangbusters ever since, growing all the time. We're having a fantastic time. Do a lot of our own shows, just like this one. And sometimes things work, sometimes they don't. And that's part of what we're going to be doing, guys, over the course of the show going forward, is just being honest on, here are some of the things that we have learned as entrepreneurs, and take our advice or don't. I didn't take advice that I should have, and I took advice that I shouldn't have. And I also took advice that I'm really glad I got throughout my life. And so we're going to hopefully be in a position for this show and all the episodes that follow it to help those who are looking to, maybe you've been considering getting your own authority, maybe you just got your own authority and you didn't realize all the headaches that came with it. Maybe it's you got it all together, but you just want to double check some of the things that you've been thinking against what we've been thinking. All of that is what we're going to try to accomplish coming up on Mind Your Trucking Business. We're up against a break. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back here in just a few minutes. So stay tuned to Mind Your Trucking Business.
Join Tom Kelly and the rest of the team each day on the Morning Grind. Then stay tuned for an encore presentation of last night's Landline Now. Weekdays on TNCRadio.live.
Catch Landline Now every night at 11 p.m. Eastern Time, along with an encore presentation weekdays at noon, right here on tncradio.live.
All right, we're back from our break, and you're listening to Mind Your Trucking Business. My name is Jamie Irvin, and we just had an opportunity to meet our great panel of hosts on the show. We're now in this segment going to talk a little bit more about what you can expect listening to Mind Your Trucking Business. So, from my perspective, the trucking industry is the backbone of society. There's been some very good research done that shows that without trucking, our great societies here in the West would collapse in just 30 days. In fact, in the first 3 days without trucks, hospitals run out of things like medicine and oxygen, and people start dying. Within a few days of that, food and water supplies and energy starts to run out. I mean, trucking is one of the building blocks of our society. So it's a very, very important industry. And it's an industry that is made up predominantly of independent, entrepreneurial minded people, whether they're owner operators driving a truck, or they're running their own fleet, or they've got a repair center or a parts store. That independent spirit runs strong in the trucking industry. And so for me, everything that I do in media is all with that lens that trucking is so important, and what can we do, what small role can we play to help other people succeed who are part of the trucking industry? And in addition to that, how could we attract more people to the industry? Because as we all know, there's 80,000 drivers we're short right now in the US. There's shortages in just about every different part of the trucking industry, and we need more people desperately because the work that we do is so important. So I'm hoping for this, in my part, to be able to impart some of the things that I've learned over working in this industry for 20 plus years, since 1998. I come at it from a perspective of how to keep the trucks and trailers rolling, how to get them the parts that they need, how to give them the repair and maintenance programs that lower total cost of operation, make truckers more profitable so that they can do more of their important work. And it's those things that are really, really important to me. I'm passionate about that. And so I'm looking forward to not only trying to share what I have learned, but also I'm looking forward to learning from my co-hosts, both Tom and James. So James, speaking of that, what are you really hoping to accomplish with this show that we've started together, Mind Your Trucking Business?
Man, Jamie, what I'd like to accomplish, I bring a unique perspective of how I look at things, for the simple fact of, one, I still operate one of the trucks in my fleet part-time, and then also running the fleet, multiple trucks. And just like you said, I completely agree that the small fleet and small business owner in general in this country, they are the backbone of our economy. It was more proven, during the pandemic and whatnot. It got shown that the small fleet was able to move a lot quicker and with a lot more flexibility, which is why, a lot of stuff shifted of who could haul it and who couldn't haul it. I think that the biggest goal I want to try to come across with this, and it's one of the things that I struggled with in the first 2 to 3 years, was I've grown to not like that term owner operator, because I think a lot of people that do come into this industry just use it for the title and look for it. Hey, I'm going to get the nice Peterbilt, the hood, and all this whatnot. I hope to come across and be able to help instill that you're not an owner operator. That's just a title. You need to understand that you are now a small business owner. You're a business owner. You are now, no matter how big or small, large you are or small you are an essential piece of this economy. And that, especially in this industry, which is why I'm so passionate about it, it's a direct parallel to the military in the sense of, we do a job that people see, but they truly don't know how it works and the effect that we do have on our country. Just like you said, in 3 days, the pandemic proved it. Hospitals, grocery stores, retailers, they start running out of stuff. The and it's up to us to move as safely and as efficiently and quickly as possible. So
James, that's a really great point that you made about the role of a small business owner. And one of the things that I'm really hoping to get across is just, so many times they're a truck driver, or they're a mechanic, or they're a parts person, and they want to start a business. So what kind of a business do they start? Well, the driver's buys a truck, and the mechanic starts a shop or a mobile truck, and the parts guy tries to launch a parts store. And running the business that does the job you used to do is a very different job than the job you used to do. And that is something that I'm really excited about, joining forces with both of you to help people to see what's actually involved in running a business. It's a lot more than just doing the job or the function that business plays in the economy.
Oh, absolutely. That was, like I said, that's one of the biggest things that I struggled with. And I made a lot of mistakes along the way. And I want to try to, given the opportunity to help somebody do that, because the common term you hear a lot of times, especially from the end of, the one truck owner, is, oh, it's easy. Well, no, it's not, because there's more to it. There's more details, especially if you start adding drivers on. Are you going to go with the contractor model? Are you going to go with the employee model? It just goes on and on, all the way to insurance, picking the insurance company, or the restrictions. And it is. And then when you get right down to the root of it, and the brass tacks of it, is staying profitable while serving a bigger mission than just yourself. I mean, regardless, if you have a truck, you're supplying over, what is there, the population of this country. You just say, I don't know the exact number, but that's exactly what it comes down to.
Yeah. I mean, between the US and Canada, the US has 380 million people or something like that. And Canada's got 38 million. You put it together, we're almost 400 million people just in the US and Canada alone.
Exactly.
So Tom, you've already talked a little bit about what you're looking to contribute to the show, but any other specific things that you really want to accomplish as we move forward and try to help people in the trucking industry?
Well, I'm sitting here with a big smile on my face listening to you guys talk, because when I first started TNCRadio.live, this was one of the first shows I wanted to get going. But because we just didn't have the right mix of the right few guys, I haven't pulled the trigger yet. And like I don't remember whether I said this on air or off air earlier, but Jamie, you and I were talking about this show for a long time, and coming across James, who already has a podcast, who's already done this kind of thing, and who, quite frankly, has the scars and the stars that goes with building a business. I finally feel like we have the right group that can actually be helpful to these business owners. And you don't have to be a truck driver to get something out of this show. We're going to be talking an awful lot about the trucking industry. And as a part of talking about the trucking industry, we will inevitably have to talk some politics, not because we want to talk politics, but it's a heavily regulated industry, both in the United States and Canada. And so politics will get in here occasionally. How we deal with life and some of the stresses that are out there, that conversation is going to be coming up. There's a lot of things that I hope that together we can unpack on a weekly basis. That I don't know that every show is going to be life-changing, but I think every show is going to have a nugget, a morsel, something for the person who's listening to say, I can apply that to what I'm doing right now today.
Yeah, and you're right. Tom, you're right in the fact of, just the fact you said that in what I'm doing right now, because it is, the trucking industry can be applied to everything, because as this industry goes through its ebbs and flows, so does the American economy and every other business, because it's affected. Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, I've often said that the trucking industry is like the canary in the coal mine. What happens in the trucking industry is always a precursor to what's going to happen in the economy, the larger economy at scale.
Yeah, my wife and I were talking with a money guy about a year ago, and I said, "What are you and your company doing to prepare your clients for the massive inflation we're going to see next summer in the United States?" And he said, "I don't know that we're doing anything."
Yeah.
And he said, "Do you really think it's going to be that?" And I said, "Look, I'm involved in the trucking industry. I'm going to tell you right now, this thing's going to trickle down. We're going to have some big time inflationary pressures and issues next year. And I want you to come back and give me some ideas on how you're going to protect your clients on doing all that." And you know what? He never had an answer for me.
I don't know if anybody has an answer right now because it is just so violent, so volatile right now.
It is. You corrected yourself, but in a way, you're right. It's violent, and the impact that it's having on the economy right now. Hey guys, we're
all right.
Break. Let's stop here. We're going to come back and let you get to know us more, get to know more about what's going on with the show and where we're going next. You're listening to TNCRadio.live. Stay right there.
TNCRadio.live, your commercial driver navigation station.
I'm Shelley Johnson with Kathy Tuccaro. You can hear us Tuesdays on TNCRadio.live at 8 p.m. Eastern on Women Road Warriors. And don't miss Steve Summers' Overnight Drive right here on TNCRadio.live, weeknights midnight to 5 a.m. Eastern. Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Welcome back to Mind Your Trucking Business on TNCRadio.live.
Hi, and welcome back to TNCRadio.live. This is Mind Your Trucking Business. I'm Tom Kelly, along with Jamie Irvin and James Rogers. And guys, as I look around the world right now, looking at this economy, looking at these supply chain issues, inflation, stagflation, quite frankly, turning on the TV right now just is enough to give a guy an ulcer, right? It's a scary time. So my question to the two of you, I'm going to start off with James. James, as people are listening in, let's say that they're a company driver thinking about getting their own authority and jumping into this. Is now a good time to even be in the trucking business, or should you just sit on the sidelines? What is your take on where we are right now and the kind of response and kind of action that somebody who maybe isn't quite sure what they want to do, what should they be looking at?
Well, you're asking the $1 million question right now. I've had multiple conversations with a lot of my peers and even a lot of my own contractors about this very topic, and it's not an easy one to answer because I share two opinions to it. Is one, there's never a bad time to get into this industry because this industry is needed. That's the first thing. We're very much in demand, especially right now. On the other side of it, if in that scenario, if I'm a company driver, I would honestly be giving you bad advice if I said, yes, now is the time to do it. And I can't give that good advice because one, it's good. I would say yes if you had a substantial amount of cash to get in at the beginning, because there's just no getting around it. The price of equipment to get in right now is extremely high. It is extremely high. The cost of insurance is extremely high right now as well. Not to mention, just the learning curve coming from a company driver to being a small, a business owner. And I'm going to use the air quotes of the title of owner operator. That learning curve, if you make a mistake, you could be out of this industry just as quickly as you came into it right now, as well as looking at what kind of equipment are you going to get. Are you going to spend the exorbitant amount of money on a truck that you may not be able to get for another 2 to 3 years? Because I've talked to many Freightliner dealerships that I deal with, and they're telling me they're not going to get any trucks till like 2023, 2024. Then you're looking at, if I go with a used truck now, am I going to be able to get parts for it? Because, I've got a contractor who's had a truck down that was trying to get one sensor, I think it was a def heater pump sensor that was on national back order, and the makers, PACCAR, Cummins, and Detroit, were all trying to find workarounds to be able, at the approval of the EPA, to delete that sensor so they could still run the trucks legally. Or do you go with a pre-emissions truck? Then you're talking about an older truck to get in it. And once again, you're back to, if it breaks down, am I going to get parts? The truck that I operate, it was recently in the shop for well over a month trying to get parts to it. So it's a catch-22. I will never say it's not a good time, but you have got to be a very, very special person, and you better have a very large amount of cash or a very good backing for credit to get in here, because the cost to get in is extremely high, and you have a very low margin to make an error, because you can be out of it just as quickly as you came into it.
So from my perspective, Jamie here, I started my business that I sold in 2016 and 2009. It was not as volatile as today, but it was pretty bad. And I would add on to what James said in this way. If you can find somebody who is able to line up enough work for you, if you could find somebody perhaps who is in trouble themselves, or is at an age where they've just decided, you know what, I think I'm ready to retire. The world's crazy right now. And you could get that truck and that equipment at a reasonable price from them, or you could pay them over time, or some kind of, like, you've got to be creative. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you've got to look for the opportunity where everybody else sees a problem. And when I started my contracting business in 2009, that's exactly what I did. I absorbed equipment from somebody who was looking to get out. I found somebody to supply me with like the first $90,000 worth of work that I needed to get the business off the ground. And so I was able to mitigate some of those upfront costs, and I was able to ensure that I had enough cash flow coming in that I was able to operate the business successfully for the first year. At that point, things started to subside with some of the economic pressures, and I was able to start to scale and grow in year 2 and 3. So if you're going to be a business owner, you've got to be flexible. You've got to be assertive. You've got to find the opportunities. And I'm with you, James. I would say if it has to be the right circumstances. But when things are bad, that is actually the time when a lot of wealth can be created and businesses can be established.
Absolutely, because it's like you said, there can be the opportunity in the right circumstance. One of the big things that I'm seeing, and I have a lot of conversation with peers and stuff with, is that a lot of them are selling their equipment. And it might be an opportunity where, hey, they're just trying to sell it to get out from under what they may owe the bank, or they may already be behind, and the bank will work with you to say, hey, if you catch him up, you can take this over completely. Because the truth is, the lenders don't want the equipment back. They just don't, because what are they going to do with it? They can't really auction it right now because prices are so high. People are already getting out of the industry. So that right situation very well may present itself. It's like, that's the part of me that says it's never a bad time to get into the industries. And it's like you said, it's going to take that right circumstance to do it. And then obviously coming into it, like you said, if you could find contracted freight that's going to cover you for that first 90 days, have a good relationship either with a broker or a direct shipper or a direct receiver, that's going to put you miles ahead of the game coming into it. But if you come into it hoping to work with certain, every broker on the board or whatnot, if you're working on the spot market, it's not going to happen. Or another course of action would be, hey, maybe you could get the truck and lease onto like a mega carrier. Not something that I promote for my own personal reasons, but you could get on with a mega carrier who already has the contracted freight, and then you're basically pulling from their pool. Yeah.
And you could go the other direction too. So you might be able to get an over-the-road truck, like let's say you could pick yourself up a nice Kenworth T680 or even a T800, and you could, if you could get that truck off of somebody who's in distress at the right price, now you might be able to rig that truck and go into some vocation, because one of the things about being in business is you do not want to be in that what they call the bloody red ocean, where where competition is fierce and prices are being driven down. You want to find that nice wide open blue ocean where there's a little bit of opportunity for you to establish yourself. So maybe there's some vocations you could focus on. You rig that truck, you get it for a good price, and now you're not out there beating your head against the wall on spot rate, but you're actually making some good money in a vocation, and you've got some nice consistent work coming in. That could give you that year, 2 years to establish yourself, learn the business. And by that time, the economic pressures we're facing now are going to be different, better, worse, the same, who knows, but they're going to be different. It probably won't be the same. And you'll be able to capitalize on future opportunities from there. I have seen so many businesses over my 25, 30 years and being around business and my 20 plus years of being around trucking. I've seen so many great businesses started when the economy was at the worst and the lowest point.
Oh, absolutely. And it also lends credit to is the piece of advice I could give to it is if you choose to come into the industry, is don't be afraid to make mistakes, but also understand that you're going to have to learn quickly how to mitigate those mistakes, because a mistake in this industry, it can cost you. It can be very pricey. It can be very costly. So understanding that coming in, and then also understanding that you're going to learn from it. Mistakes are going to happen. They just are. Whether you're booking the wrong kind of freight, whether your equipment may not be set up right, maybe you picked the wrong kind of truck for what you need or whatnot. So simple things like that, and it is. I mean, this industry is not cookie cutter. That's the good thing. No matter whether the economy's bad or whether it's great, this industry is not cookie cutter, and there's so much you can do in it to be successful.
No matter what you do, don't cheap out on compliance, safety, or maintenance and repairs, because that'll sink you every single time.
Absolutely. 100%. I mean, every time I take one of my trucks home, or my contractors do, that's like an unspoken word. Is first place it goes is to the shop to make sure we can prevent it. So,
you hit on something I think is very important there, Jamie, that I wanted to follow up on it, and that is timing. A lot of people will look at today's economy and what's going on in the industry today and say, yeah, bad time. Now it's not sometimes it's all about timing, and when everybody else is running out, sometimes that's exactly the right time to run in, but you have to do it with a plan. I'm not saying blindly run into the burning building. You got to have the right equipment with you, right? But to pull on that analogy a little bit further, sometimes when you run in and everybody else is running out, gives you the best opportunities to do some of the things that I started a radio station in the middle of a pandemic. Who the heck does that?
Right.
That sounds absolutely crazy, and maybe it was, but I think it also gave us an advantage at a time when a lot of people had kind of pulled back. They weren't really sure what to do next. They were hesitating, and we found that there was a whole group of people who were dying for good content.
Hey, Tom, sorry, James. I just wanted to say I started a contracting business that primarily focused on housing in a housing collapse that had never been seen before in 2009. And I started a consulting business that focused on digital sales and marketing in the middle of a pandemic when we were under complete lockdown. And for the first time in history, nobody was at the office. So I'm a big proponent of finding opportunities when everybody else is trying to run the other direction.
And just like you said, it's like for us during the pandemic when we work a lot on the spot market at the time, but we've developed a lot of good relationships. When so many drivers, I think we lost 80,000 drivers over that period of time, is the fact that we grew. We actually grew. I was able to add 2 trucks based on the relationships of hauling relief loads, but at the same time, it took me back to an acronym that I learned in the military, which was KISS, keep it simple, stupid. And it goes back to even the same thing when you come if you come into the industry at a time like this, that you got to keep it simple. You've got to know your numbers coming in. And that's something we could talk about later, but that's what it comes down to is keep it at the basics and keep it just simple. So you know your numbers coming in, just like any business owner.
And the acronym I follow is FOCUS, follow one course until success.
Exactly.
Fantastic. I like that. Follow one course until success. All right, guys, we're going to take a break. Be back. We're going to wrap up the show. You've been listening to TNCRadio.live's Mind Your Trucking Business. Stay tuned.
That's right. I'm not a spring chicken anymore, but hey, I'm doing good. I went in for a full physical yesterday, requirement by my insurance company, and the doctor was like, "Wow, you're doing good." So I was glad. I was very happy to hear that.
Well, good. Yeah.
Yeah. Lost some weight. Blood looked good. So yeah, all good.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I also had a doctor appointment yesterday and went in, and it was one of those appointments. Bend over and cough and all that kind of worst dentist ever. I'm telling you. Jamie, how are we looking out there on traffic? I think you had some updates for us while we were on break this week.
For the latest in traffic, weather, and information, catch the Morning Grind weekdays on TNCRadio.live.
Hot Shots Secret presents Steve Summers' Overnight Drive nightly at midnight Eastern, 11 Central on TNCRadio.live or download the app .tncradio.live.
Welcome back to Mind Your Trucking Business. I'm one of your co-hosts, Jamie Irvin, and we're going to wrap up today's segment here, our last segment, where we're going to talk a little bit more about how to get a hold of each one of your co-hosts here on Mind Your Trucking Business. And then at the end, Tom's going to take us out by letting us know what we're going to talk about in our next episode next week. So to start with, James, first of all, tell us about your show and tell us how people can get a hold of you, how they can interact with the content that you're making each and every week.
Oh, I get to brag a little bit now. Cool.
That's right. Brag it up.
I started a little podcast. Actually, it's kind of developed into a podcast, but I started doing YouTube a couple years back. And the reason I started doing it was I wanted to, if I took on the mantra of, because I was helped and I was blessed when I was awarded the truck by Progressive and St. Christopher's Fund, that I took on the mantra of, if I can just help one other person with what I'm going through and what I'm learning and what I've been through, then I consider myself a success. And with the way that technology's kind of progressed with the platforms and social media, that was the easiest way that I knew that I could get to the masses. And then it's developed into what I consider to be the best podcast involving the trucking industry on YouTube. It's called, I finally got the title, I call it the Road Rage Podcast. The reason being is because you don't always have a good day, but maybe just coming in, chatting and talking to us about it or whatnot. It's a live call-in show. I can accept you on a video call, or we can even do a phone call. And I do it about once a week or so. And we talk about all sorts of stuff, ranging from the trucking industry. Truck drivers love to talk about sports because not everybody can sit and watch a football game on the weekend or on a Thursday night or a Monday night. But it always centers around trucking. How can it be of help? What's going on in the market? Are you having an issue that you want to ask a question about? And maybe I can give you a different perspective. I have guests on who are also fleet owners and, own their own trucks or their company drivers. And to me, it's the best thing out there on YouTube as far as the industry goes. And we put out the best information that we can. And if we don't know the answer, we sure enough will go find it for you.
Right on, James. So it's the Road Rage Podcast. You can find it on YouTube. We'll make sure links are in the show notes of our episode here on podcast. You mentioned it's a podcast as well. Are you also publishing it on different podcast apps?
I am not yet. That is my next step. It's been a steady growth, and I've just kind of been taking it as I grow bigger and I get to the point where I feel that I can, reach more people. Then I am going to start putting it on different podcast platforms. That's probably going to be in the next 30 to 60 days, probably.
Fantastic.
But YouTube, I've been having a pretty good thing with YouTube because everybody watches YouTube. Sometimes I got to get around some of the algorithm stuff because over there, I'm a little bit more, and I use the air quotes, truck driverish a little bit, and so it is what it is, but it's about the information. It's about the camaraderie. It's about the reminder that, this industry is the greatest industry in the country. And it gives us a small example of brotherhood, how we can come together and we can share ideas and we can come up with solutions.
All right. Well, that sounds good. So head over to Road Rage, hosted by James Rogers. And also, as we are airing right now on tncradio.live, we're also going to be publishing this podcast on podcast apps. So you go over and subscribe to Mind Your Trucking Business podcast, wherever you get your podcast. And in the show notes, we will make sure there are links to anything we're talking about, up to and including how to find James's show. So I'll talk a little bit about my show. I host the Heavy Duty Parts Report. I was a parts manufacturer and a distributor, so of course that was a natural progression for me. The purpose of my show is really to help fleet maintenance managers, repair technicians, and parts technicians to hear from the people who manufacture the parts, the tools, the technology, and the industry experts to help them be better at what they need to do. We really focus on lowering total cost of operation and lowering that total cost per mile. So that's the big focus of our show. We air 3 episodes a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And you can find all of our content on heavydutypartsreport.com. Again, links will be in the show notes of our podcast here at Mind Your Trucking Business. It's going to take me a while to roll that off the tongue. But in addition to where all my content is on the website on heavydutypartsreport.com. Again, like I said, we are on YouTube, we are on social media, and we also put that out on every podcast we could possibly register to. So you should be able to find Heavy Duty Parts Report very easily, but it all starts and ends with heavydutypartsreport.com. Tom, tell us a little bit more about what's going on at tncradio.live. And also, could you kind of cue us up for what people can expect next week?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, guys, great job bragging about yourselves. You should, because your stuff is fantastic. As a matter of fact, you can hear episodes of the Heavy Duty Parts Report each and every morning starting at 7 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Eastern on tncradio.live. Play that every day, and Monday through Friday. So nestled in between the primetime shows from the night before and starting our morning briefing that we do each day, you can find the Heavy Duty Parts Report that Jamie does. And some of the episodes may be a little bit older, and they're always randomized, so you never know exactly what you're going to get, kind of like a box of chocolates, but it's always good stuff. So all of that available here on tncradio.live. Guys, things are really exciting for us right now. We've got a primetime lineup. Monday through, well, actually now it's every night of the week. I'll concentrate on the weeknights here for just a moment. Monday nights, we look at mind, body, and soul, and we call it Motivational Mondays with shows from Dr. Christopher Cortman, Hope Zavala, and the guys are friends from over at TFC Global. On Tuesday nights, it's Ladies' Night, not necessarily just for the listeners, though. We've got our good friend Shannon Courier doing a show called The Southern Route, Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy DeCaro, and right after that is Thoughts and Coffee with Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. So, as you guys can see, each night we've got kind of a theme going on. So, this show will be on Thursday nights. Right after this show, of course, is Ron Samuels. Ron Samuels, we call him the Maestro, and he does a show called Reverse Gear, where he looks at the history of popular music. And then right after that, it's Remember When with Wesley Britton. Wesley brings us back to, oh gosh, that guy knows everybody who was anybody back in 50s, 60s, 70s television and beyond, and it's just a blast to catch up on, whatever happened to that kid from Lost in Space, and whatever happened to, finding out who these people are and what else they went on to do in the world. So exciting stuff. We have a lot of fun with it all. Wednesday nights, everything's live, including a new sports talk show that we started last night. Really excited about that. So it's a great time to be listening in on tncradio.live. Of course, we have our live shows every day. In the morning, we have the morning grind, and that starts at 9 o'clock Eastern. And in the afternoon, we have the Evening Surge. That starts at 5 o'clock Eastern. At 4 o'clock Eastern every day, too, we have the Truckers Network Radio Show with Shelley Johnson. Also a live show. Guys, we're approaching, I think, we're getting pretty close to the 500th episode of that show. Yeah, and lots of great stuff there. All of the topics, all of the programming we do on tncradio.live is about, is this something that would be helpful to the driver? So I don't do a lot of stuff on basket weaving. We don't do a lot of quilting or oil painting. Stuff that we don't think is going to be very helpful to the driver. We don't do it. Health stuff. We talk about health. We talk about how to be stronger, both mentally and physically, and spiritually. We talk about how to run the business better. We talk about everything that goes into being a well-rounded person, and we got a lot of different views. The team right now is made up of just all sorts of different types of people. So it's very diverse, and you're going to learn something from everybody. So it's a great resource. And then, of course, overnight, it's Steve Summers and the Overnight Drive. Very excited to have Steve. Steve joined the family back in February, and that's one of our most popular programs, and it runs all night. So that's
we might have to talk about that knitting show. I kind of like the knit. That's relaxing. So
yeah. We'll talk about Knit One Pearl too at some point, but maybe next season we'll. But guys, thank you so much. I think this has been a great first episode. Really enjoyed getting to know both of you better. Hopefully the listeners have too. Hey, got some input for us? Want to know something else? Send us an email at info@tncradio.live. That's info@tncradio.live. One of the three of us will absolutely get back with you. Look forward to hearing from you. And guys, next week, we're going to be talking about some of the things that are messing up the supply chain. Right now, we have a number of what the three of us have identified as chain breakers. They're breaking the supply chain. First up, we're going to be looking at cybersecurity and some of the issues that we're facing. These are real threats, and I know you've heard about some of it in the news. It's going to get so much worse, and it's so much more dangerous than what I think most people in the public really understand. Not trying to scare anybody, just being factual here. Got some real issues out there. What can you as a driver do to better protect yourself? I'm going to give you something before we sign off tonight. If you want to help protect yourself from a cybersecurity perspective every single day before you go to bed, reboot your phone. Just do that simple act, and you will reduce the amount of virus and particular potential issues where people could get information off your phone. Do it every single day. Just reboot your phone. Only takes a moment. If you do that, you will have put a big crimp in the style of many who might be using your phone to either pass along other information or to gather information about you. So we'll have that. We'll have other practical steps next week right here on Mind Your Trucking Business.